Try and figure out what are some of the things that is helping you to feel that way. Is it because the sun is coming in at the perfect angle? Is it because there's a very soft rug underneath and your toes are just in it? Once you're able to really feel space, you're able to know what you want your space to feel like, and you can incorporate those little details, the technical things that help it to feel the way you want it to feel.
Today we are in the space of Verdani
Partners.
And it is so beautiful. I'm gonna take some B-roll and then I'm gonna put it on right now so y'all can see it. There are so many plants here. There are high ceilings, and this feels like one of the best corporate spaces I've ever been in.
Wow, that is so cool. You make me want to go around and count the plants now because there's a lot.
How many? 100?
I don't know. I mean, there's a ton. There's at least 20 in the room we're in right now, and that's you know.
Do most of your spaces consist of plants?
Yes. Yeah. I think that plants are super necessary. They help to cleanse the air.
Yeah.
They help us to feel like we're outside. We spend 90% of our time indoors. So it's one of those things where we need to bring the outside in. So yeah, most of my spaces have plants in them, but it all depends on the client, right? And their version of green thumb upkeep. My client here, Verdani Partners and Danielle Horton, she is a plant lady for sure, 300%. And so really what we were doing, the name of the game was find places for all these plants that I already have.
Wow.
And we did. We got the job done.
Wow, that is amazing. How did you meet Danielle?
I met Danielle through the San Diego Green Building Council and Women Plus in Green. We're both long-standing members of the San Diego Green Building Council, and we recently connected at the Winter Social, and that was back in February. And she told me, she's like, I need to move my whole office, 70 employees, in May. And I was like, and you haven't started designing yet? She's like, no. And I'm like, you don't have a designer yet? She's like, no. Like, do I need one, basically? And I'm like, oh my God, like, we need to start, like, yesterday. Like, what do you mean? You know, like, and she's so extremely busy. So
Yeah.
I get it. But I emailed her that same night, like, literally within, like, 2 minutes of walking back to my car. It was like, let's get this show on the road. And we finally started.
How long is a good time to start planning before you move? Or do you need to find a space first?
So there's never like a perfect time to start. I will say that the design process, you can never start too early, because a big part of the design process is design research, and it helps to know what you like and what you want to incorporate into your space. And that sort of design direction helps you to pick a space, helps you to, you know, like when you're out looking, to really appreciate the things that the existing space already has. And if those are aligned with your design research, then, you know, it may help you to, like, really narrow it down. I was lucky with this project in that Danielle Horton, she already had, like, a pretty strong design direction that she wanted to go with. She came to me with images. This is what I want. And then I went to her existing office at the time, her previous office now, and it was really obvious that they had a ton of plants, they had a ton of existing furniture, and the space had a lot of charm in the first place. And so at the same time with her, she started the design process early, way before we hooked up, you know?
Yeah.
So that helped. that helped.
Do you mainly help people design their business spaces, or have you ever done home spaces?
I've definitely done some residential things. I would say the majority of my portfolio has been commercial spaces. A lot of banks and credit unions and things that people wouldn't,
Wow.
yeah, people would be like, wait, what? I've been getting more and more into residential within the past 2 years. It's something that if you would have told me 10 years ago that I was going to be doing residential spaces, I'd be like, no, why? But now it's like, it's pretty much inescapable.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because people do need help, number one, but also people are looking more and more to incorporate mindfulness and their spiritual practice in place. And that usually happens in their home.
I have like 2 things that I want to talk about, but first...
Say them both at the same time.
Both at the same time. I have a garage space that me and my roommates are gonna turn into a meditation area. And it's like a blank canvas. It's a garage right now. So it'll be, it feels like I'm excited for the end result, but I'm also like, where do we even start?
Yeah. Precedence. It's the design research aspect. A lot of people use Pinterest for that sort of thing. I've been using AI to create precedence. It's kind of a really cool way to create something that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And it's another layer of creativity. Pinterest is always great. Do you have Pinterest?
I do.
Yeah, it's fun. It's also kind of dangerous because it's like you can go overboard really quickly, or you can be like, oh, I really want this aesthetic, but that aesthetic may not be available to you locally or sustainably. It's also can be like really expensive.
Yeah.
You know, and sort of misleading when you see someone do something and you know 4 different steps and you're like, oh, I can do that. You know? and then you can't because you know it's, I don't know, so it's sort of, it can be sort of misleading, it can be sort of false, but it's still a really good tool to organize your design direction and sort of like the color palette and the different forms you want to incorporate, the different patterns and motifs, that sort of thing.
I feel like this is going to be a silly question, but do you start with like the floor and the walls, or am I trying to like make this too logical? Is there not really like one place that you start with?
First of all, what you just said about making something too logical.
Yeah.
Like, that is something that people like don't get there. Like they just like kind of stay in the ether of, okay, I just want it to look like this, but they don't understand like you do have to treat the floor plane. You do have to treat, you know, every single wall and the ceiling plane. Like the ceiling plane is the most complicated thing.
Yeah.
So good on you for thinking about that. But the first step I would say would be to think about how you want the space to feel.
Okay. Yeah.
How you want the space to feel. And think about previous spaces you've been to that have felt that way. And sort of a part of your design research would be to go and visit those spaces and say, oh, how does this make me feel? Does it make me feel good? Does it make me feel claustrophobic? Does it make me feel exposed? Does it make me feel vulnerable or sad or happy? You know,
Yeah.
and figure out like, I mean, this is kind of advanced, but try and figure out what are some of the things that is helping you to feel that way. Is it because the sun is coming in at the perfect angle through the windows or the skylight? Is it because there's a very soft rug underneath and your toes are just in it, you know?
Yeah.
Or is it because they have super sleek, cold chairs, and so you feel really cold because the metal is touching your thigh? Something like that. So it's like, once you're able to really feel space, you're able to know what you want your space to feel like, and you can incorporate those little details, the technical things that help it to feel the way you want it to feel.
Thank you. That is so useful. Because I can immediately think of spaces like Maya Moon Collective. When I walk in there, it feels really open and it feels really cozy. And I love being in the space and I love looking around the space because it's so aesthetically pleasing and inviting.
Yes.
And let's clarify that Steffi helped design Maya Moon Collective. Ooh, I'm so excited for the next topic because I read one of your posts and it was about when you were in 3rd grade, you learned the word architect.
Yes.
And you were like, that's me. And I'm so curious, when did you start designing spaces?
Whew. I was 14 or 15 when I learned how to draft. And once I learned how to draft, I was very obviously designing spaces. I was designing my dream home or, placing the bed and doing things like that. I will say that my design exploration started when the earliest memory I have was when I was in 1st grade. And it almost brings I almost feel myself welling up because I'm like, wow, I never think of this. But I remember in nap time, it was nap time, and I was in a Jasmine, from Aladdin, sleeping bag, and the light was coming through the sleeping bag. I was completely in it, hiding, and the light was filtering through the sleeping bag. And I remember feeling, I don't know if I felt like I was in the womb or what, but I immediately started to carve out shelves in the sleeping bag, because it's kind of moldable, kind of just making it so that it was my own little comfortable cave womb sleeping bag.
Oh my gosh.
That's the earliest memory I have. And then coming up as a kid, I'd put stickers everywhere, or I had a beaded curtain, that I saw at some garage sale. Mom, I want that, It's just I was always open to upgrading my space, any way I could.
Yeah. And who taught you how to draft when you were 14?
Oh, Mr. Skorup.
Was that your teacher at school? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you went out and sought a teacher to help you?
Yeah, I was at Waubonsie Valley High School back in Aurora, Illinois, and they offered a drafting class. So I learned how to draft by hand first. Took a couple classes like that. And then, in drafting too is when we started learning AutoCAD and we started learning Revit and we started learning the technical programs that I still use today. I had a really good foundation in that. I actually went to... this is so nerdy. I actually competed in I made it to state, and I competed in a drafting competition at the state level.
Wow. I love that. That's passionate.
So random.
You're passionate and driven.
Yeah.
So, have you been doing design your entire life since you graduated high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Has there ever been anyone or have you ever doubted yourself, or has there ever been people who are like, you can't do this full time?
Yes.
And I'm assuming you never really listened to them. You just kept going.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even myself, I had to tell, because after I graduated from college with my degree in interior architecture and design, it took me 9 months to get my first big girl job. And I was still making art and doing things. I was working at a Planet Fitness, and I was doing my best to that's when I really got into the PR of design and branding and that sort of thing. Because I'm okay, I have to do something. I have to make myself.
Yeah.
I have to put myself out there. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of doubt there. I ended up my first job being a landscape designer because I really wanted everything I specified to be green and leafy. I knew I didn't want to be in straight up interior design. That's another thing. We'll get to that soon, I'm sure. But yeah, everything I specified was biodegradable. And that made me feel really good. I will say I had an uncle growing up, and he definitely doubted my career choice. I told him what I was going to school for. I actually transferred from engineering school into design school, which is like the hardest thing to ever do. I don't recommend it to anybody, but like, and he's like, you need to go back to your engineering school and you just need to get that engineering degree or just start working right now, like at a store, retail or whatever. You need to start making money like right now. Like you can't just do this design thing. Like you can't be an architect. Either go back to school and get your engineering degree or, do whatever. I did my best to prove him wrong.
You did a great job.
I prove him wrong every day.
Has he ever forgiven you?
He's dead.
Oh.
And we just laugh.
Well, that's such an important lesson. Or these people who want to squash your dreams or like that's just the level of consciousness that they're at and belief that they're in. And like at the end of the day, they're not even like it's our life that we're living and we need to go out and do.
And respect to that uncle, because he did help to shape a lot of who I was, but a lot of these people, and this is something that I've been going through like since COVID, is people only can advise you on what they know. Yeah. He only knows that you have to work to have money come in. And like it makes sense, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense. That's how we were all raised up from, at least in my region of Chicagoland, where I was from. Coming into entrepreneurialism is very much like I'm facing all these ancestral issues that have come up of making wealth and building wealth. And they say, and I don't know whose statistic this is, but they say that Black families, I'm half Black and half Mexican, they say that Black families have to work for 3 generations at least. We're like 3 generations behind in terms of wealth compared to our white counterparts. And so it's really hard to like have a leg to stand on. It's like every generation we have to get it out of the mud. And so it's like a lot of the advice that I get from the family that I'm closest to have gotten it out of the mud. They expect me to do the same. And it's like, but it doesn't have to be that way. No. And so traveling on the road of entrepreneurialism is something that's very new to me. It's very uncomfortable. It's something that I question every day, every single day. Yeah, and I'm honestly scared out of my mind. I'm scared, but it's also like, it's rewarding. There's big rewards.
With my podcast, there are entrepreneurial pursuits, and there is that part of me that's really scared and questions what I'm doing. But then there's like a bigger part that's like, I can't do anything else. Like there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. So I'm gonna have to be scared and I'm gonna have to do it anyway.
You're exactly right. And that's the thing, like as a Virgo perfectionist, it's really hard for me to like fail or to even set myself up to fail or fall. I have like this fear of falling, like you wouldn't believe. Like I can't ice skate or roller skate or skateboard or anything because I'm afraid I'm gonna fall. And so to have that sort of mindset like in my own business, it's like, I don't know. But also I have failed. I probably will fail again. But that's how I know that I'm pushing the boundary. I'm pushing the envelope. I'm not just sitting and, I'm actually trying things. Yeah. So that helps.
Yeah. I'm also finding that it really helps to have the supportive rocks in my life. Like the people who I know when I'm feeling really vulnerable and scared, I can go to them and trust that they're gonna guide me in the right direction. And then like there's other people that I know, if I go to them, they're probably gonna be like, well, maybe you should do something else, or maybe you should stop. Like they're just not gonna support me in the way that I really want.
And sometimes it's good to hear those things that you don't agree with too. You know, like I had to hear my uncle say, just get a job, or either be an engineer, or if you can't, just get a job.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I wasn't working, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And like, I had to hear him say that so I can be like, no, like, no, like I'm standing up confidently doing what I have to do.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you for that perspective.
Yeah. The naysayers.
My next question is about taking leaps of faith. And when I bring that up, is there any one point in time where you're like, that was a huge leap of faith and it worked out?
It has to do like probably with more like my art world. I paint and I draw. Okay, I have one. And it was actually one that Catherine put me up to, the owner of Maya Moon.
Yeah.
She has this rotating gallery, and every 2 months a new artist comes in. And she invited me to do it right off the bat, before they'd even open. Steffi, get your art up here and we can open it. And I'm like, I don't have art to show. Like, I'm an artist, but like I don't have like gallery style art to show. Like, I just don't. And especially not enough to fill your walls. And she's like, okay, well, maybe down the road. And she asked me again, like, last year, 2020, May 2022, like, was the time for me to do it. And I was just like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But I'm going to try. So I just committed to it. And that was my leap of faith. I was just like, I'm just going to do it. I'm like, what are we showing? And I had to put together a whole collection. I called it the Neural Collection. I had a gallery opening night, and I invited everyone I knew to come to Maya Moon to view my art and to view the design. And we had a DJ. I spoke. People loved my speaking, which was really random, but I was like, okay, cool. And then I sang at the end. And that was like the most like out there I'd been. Like, whereas, like, because my paintings really show my emotional self, and the design really shows the skills I've been working on since I was in 3rd grade, 1st grade, 14, 15, you know, my whole life. And so it was very vulnerable. And I was inspired to do that, to like make it big and do a thing, like, by one of my friends. He would have these like music video shoots in different cities, and sold out for pretty much all of them. He sold out all the tickets up in LA. That was the biggest one, was up in LA. Sold out all the tickets, and we were so happy, and I was just like so inspired. I'm like, I cannot wait to have an event up for myself that sells out. Like, it's gonna be so exciting. And so I created that event, and that was a true leap of faith, because it was way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, it's amazing. These leaps of faith can be so scary, but once we do it and get to it, it's so fulfilling, right?
And I think I can do it again, which is great. And I've now been in one other gallery since, and next month my art will be up in another gallery.
Oh,
too,
yay.
like in a different gallery. So it's like this ongoing thing.
Yeah.
It's like because I made that initial investment in myself. Happy. I'm really happy with it.
Let's get into the energetics of creating a space and cleansing space, and maybe, do you sage your spaces?
Yes. I haven't saged this space. I think Danielle has, but my space, personally,
Yeah.
myspace.com, gets saged often, all the time. My neighbor caught me saging the other day. He goes, oh, thank God there's no demons around because of you, or something. And I was just like, we're protected here. You know? I like went back inside in my pajamas.
How often do you sage?
Oh, I sage like every time the vibe is off.
Yeah.
Every time the vibe is off. Every time I'm sick or I'm like crying uncontrollably afterwards, when I'm able to calm down, I will sage. if there was an interaction or something like out on the street, even like not even has anything to do with me, or if there was neighbors had an argument or whatever, I'll sage, that sort of thing, just to help to move the energy. It's like, all right, that happened, we witnessed it, let's not sit in it, get it out.
When someone is looking at new spaces to move into, what's the most important thing to cultivate good health?
I say lighting, daylighting, for sure. Daylighting and lighting in general. Lighting and access to light really stimulates our brain, and it helps us to clock into our circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm, for anybody who doesn't know, is your sort of internal clock that tells you when it's time to go to bed, when it's time to wake up. It also affects things like digestion and mental function, clarity. And so it's really important for us to have access to the sun outside, to see whether it's setting or if it's high in the sky or whatever, for our energy levels, for how we digest things, all those things. So I would say solar orientation as well, because you want thermal comfort too. You want to be able to be warm in the winter and cool in the summer. So I feel like windows attribute to that, but so does like what the walls are made out of and which way the sun is coming in, that sort of thing. If there's awnings, or if there's like a porch, if there's, and adjustability, I think. Like if you do have an awning, maybe you want it to be, the sun to be able to move through it in the winter, and then you want it to be completely closed during the summer. That sort of thing, where you can adjust. And location.
What do you mean by location?
I feel like in any space, like whether you're buying a home or, picking an office space, I feel like the location's got to make sense.
Do you mean like country or direction?
I mean like within your local like sphere that you're already in. If you're planning to stay local, then like stay local and have it be convenient. I feel like that really helps with your mental health, but also like just working things in. Like if you pick an office space and it's an hour and a half from your house, you're gonna be stressed out, knowing that you have to go there, and knowing that you have to drive back home, and just for your mental health and so that you're not just spending all your time in a car. Like it's better to choose something that's already in your route.
Yeah.
Yeah, or plan to change.
I do hear a lot of people who sacrifice, like, say they moved to Temecula because it's cheaper, so like they sacrifice location for money.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't have a house. I'm not planning on buying a house soon, but it is something that I question, like, would I move farther to have more space or to spend less money?
Well, I'm sure those people there were like, okay, it's time for a change. I want my house, and this is it. Like, I'm just gonna have to make a life over there, and that's the kind of thing where, all right, they completely moved their whole lives. I moved across the country, and so I get it, because it was like, it wasn't worth it for me to just stay there, because I wanted to work in California. I wanted to learn about indoor-outdoor living. I wanted to learn more about sustainable practices. I wanted to be out here with people who are more conscious of their bodies and their minds and their spirituality, and I wanted to be by the ocean. So like I made the sacrifice, and I don't look back, because now I'm in a space where I don't know, I'm pretty close to everything. I picked a really good location.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I came from Philadelphia.
Yeah. No regrets.
No. Oh, absolutely not.
No.
My next question, would you say that you've experienced spiritual awakenings throughout your life? What was your first one like?
This is tough. This is a tough question, because I feel like I've felt spirit through music and church. My grandmother was the pastor a spiritual temple of truth over on the west side of Chicago. And this place, like this church, it's very like, we love Jesus and Jesus this and Jesus that. And Jesus is cool. I'm cool with Jesus. And like, also we would have these like festivals, and like we would have this fall festival every year. And looking back, it felt very pagan. And like they would have someone who would sit there and would give you readings. And this lady giving me a reading would feel my energy and would tell me about myself. And I feel like that was one of the first spiritual awakenings I've had. I was maybe 13. I realized she was channeling then. How, you know? And I was so intrigued by that. And I realized, like, this is not just a regular, and I've been to other churches since. It's not just a regular church. Like I mean, we, the family, you know, we're very, at least at one point, in touch with the spirit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like the metaphysical aspects of this life and the next, probably the one previous. So, yeah, probably 13.
Mm-hmm. How has your spiritual awakening affected your life and how you go throughout life?
It helps me to know that I am not alone, which is great for someone who's an individual, lives alone, works alone. You know, I'm never alone. And I know that I can put all of this into somebody else's hands. And like share it and surrender. I feel like the surrendering is something that I've had to do again and again and again and again and again. And every time I do it, it becomes a little easier. It becomes a little bit easier. I remember like maybe not the first time I surrendered in life, but I remember when it used to be so difficult. Because I was so headstrong and I had to plan and but it's just like, just surrender. And then I'd beat myself up for it, like how could you let that happen or da 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 da. But it's just like, some things are not for us. Not everything I want is for me, and that's okay. It's totally okay.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
Yeah, it's a lot though too. Like people don't even realize where they need to surrender or where they haven't, and it's like, you just have to. There are some things that are way out of your control. And so it's almost crazy for us to even think that we had control in the first place.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I would not be here if I didn't have my really spiritual experiences. And like, I wouldn't believe in myself. I wouldn't trust that things are going to work out. I'm also right now learning how to hold a vision and surrender at the same time. Because when I first started my spiritual journey and just started becoming more aware of spirituality, I felt like I just always wanted to just let things be and just surrender and let things play out how they play out. But as I got older, I felt like I wanted more things, but I wasn't getting anything because I wasn't holding a vision.
Oh, okay.
And so like now I have a vision with this podcast and where I want to be in life, but I can kind of like flip the other side of like, this has to be the vision, like this has to work. So I'm learning to just kind of be like, hey, spirit team, this is what I want. This is what lights me up. Like, I'm going there. I will do the things that I need to do to get there, but I also will surrender to how everything will play out.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. I'm super, like you, super committed to the design thing, and also understanding that it may not pay my bills every day the way I want it to. You know, that sort of thing. Or for me, surrendering in entrepreneurialism is freelancing and working with other designers to help make their visions come true, and design assist and like fitting in where I can get in so that I can live the way I want and the location that I want and eating the food that I want, which is vegan, organic. It's like the most bougiest thing I've ever done in my life. And so like, and I want to travel, and I rarely get to because I can rarely afford it anymore. Even going home to see my family is like a whole thing. Life is different. I've definitely surrendered a lot of things, or sacrificed quite a bit, and maybe that's okay. But I also have faith too that it's gonna be better, and that as people find out what I'm capable of and what they are capable of, and when we work together, like how it all comes together, like it's just gonna be better. You know, I really feel like I'm still in the beginning of a movement. It's not just like what I'm doing with my life. That's why I say like I do a lot of holistic design literacy, is so that people understand that their spaces are for them and they are human. And so we need to cater to that, and like, and not just do things because it's on trend, or because that's what your neighbor did, or because that's what CB2 has on their cover. You know, it's like, what are we doing that is going to both hold space for you and everything you're going through, and also helps to uplift and empower the environment. You know, it's a tall order for sure, but it's totally possible. I mean, we're in this space now.
Yeah, this is where it all begins. And there definitely is a huge movement. And when you said huge movement, I immediately thought about corporate, like the corporate structures and like cubicles, and how the younger generation, as they come up, they're not, I already know they're not doing it. That's not gonna.
We're not even doing it.
Yeah.
Like, even the millennials who were like, we strived for that office job. When I was a little kid, I would play office with my cousin. We'd be stacking papers and doing the things and stapling random things to random things. We'd play office because we just knew for sure we wanted an office job. It's gonna be great. No more.
Yeah, it's just not happening.
No, I mean, it's nice to co-work with people and collaborate and things like that. And if you need help, like, don't get me wrong, like when I was working in a design firm, I loved being able to learn alongside somebody. I loved teaching and growing like that and having the camaraderie. And I also suffered with those people because we were oppressed, you know. We were stuck in some place 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, sometimes 10, and being, you know, with the grind. And so, no more.
No. And you're part of this, the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. At the forefront, at the frontier. I was there during COVID when everybody was working from home, you know.
Yeah, that definitely created a massive shift.
Oh, yeah. In everything. In energetics and all of it.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting to talk about this. And my first job out of college was a huge corporate company, and there were cubicles. It was like the legit, like corporate structure that you see on like wherever, pictures, memes. And I only worked there for 2 months because it was a temporary position, but I actually never worked in that kind of environment ever since then. And it blows my mind that people do that for years, for like their whole
long
life.
time.
Yeah.
I respect those people who do, because I know that they're doing something that helps us all. You know, they're helping to do their part in society. And my tip for those people who, you know, they're sitting in the same place in the same time. First of all, don't sit. Get up. Get a standing desk. Talk somebody into making that purchase, or stand it up yourself. Get something that like you can put on top of it and stand up, because sitting is the new smoking. Get outside often. If you have a break, if you have a minute, like go outside, go for a walk, do something. Do some breath work outside, get some fresh air. And also, I would say to those people, personalize your space however you can. put up pictures of your kids. You know, you see those, I'm sure you've seen, especially at that place you worked at, people would personalize their desk with all sorts of tchotchkes and things. Like, whenever you get a chance to personalize your space, like, do it. Do it. Like, it makes a big difference. Because once you feel like a space is your own, like, you adapt to it, and it just makes you feel more comfortable, and actually that feeling makes you more productive.
Yeah, that's so true.
Whereas if you just like sat in some random space every day, you'd be like, okay, you'd be uncomfortable, and it's distracting.
What is the meaning of life?
Like carbon-based life forms. I think that the meaning of life is to serve and be served. Like our relationship with the trees and the plants. We breathe in, everybody take a deep breath. Oxygen. And when we breathe out, carbon dioxide. And the plants use that carbon dioxide and they give us oxygen. And we have this cyclical relationship where we wouldn't exist without them. And I don't know if they would probably exist without us, but they're happy that we are expelling the carbon dioxide. If we can serve and be served and know that that is our purpose here, I feel like we'd all be a lot happier, because it's like we all know that we have to be there for somebody. And it's way easier to accept sacrifices when you know you have to be, when you know it's your life purpose. And it's way easier to receive when you know it's your life purpose to receive.
If you could ask one question to every person in this world, what would that question be?
Have you drinking some water? That one. Are you hydrated?
What does your spiritual practice look like?
So glad you asked. Every day I wake up, and one of the first things I do after using the bathroom is I go outside and I breathe, I meditate, I do visual eye exercises, and I try and feel like what my last dream was. And I also try and like nip it in the bud, like the monkey mind of like thinking about everything I have to do, of all the noise that's going on in my neighborhood, of, all the cars that are going past, like nip my monkey mind in the bud and just say, hey, this is great. Let's breathe. Focus on the breath. And I always make myself, like, it's not always this easy. It's not always easy to meditate every day. It's definitely a practice, but it's also a practice to, really just quiet everything. It's really good for me to take a few breaths that are just for me. Just for me, not for anybody else, just for my mind, and there's nothing else going on in my head. And it's harder than it sounds. Every month, with the new moon, I write 10 intentions, or new moon wishes is what I call them. And I easily and effortlessly, blah, 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 affirmations. I say them every morning after my meditation. Every morning I say them out loud, outside. And I thank the universe, I thank God, and I thank the universe, and I thank God over and over and over and over and over again. And that's like one of the ways that I'm able to start my day with gratitude. Because the more, I fully believe that the more we're in gratitude, the more that we thank the universe for what we have, the more the universe is just like, here you go, baby. Oh, you like that cookie? Here's another cookie. So I've got no problem being in gratitude and receiving, I feel too that what's a part of, one of the main things that's a part of my spiritual practice is making time for these conversations where we can figure out how other people are doing it, or what are their spiritual awakenings, and just talking about it, you know, either in forum, or some people do it in church, some people do it with their significant others in the shadows, in the dark. And like, I have friends, like, we'll meet up at the park and we'll share food, we'll break bread, and we'll talk about those things, or we'll sit in meditation together. You know, if you go to a yin yoga class ever, you get you get to a certain point where you're just like, okay, I'm stretching out and releasing, like, not just my muscles, but like all of this emotional baggage and things, and that stuff is very spiritual.
Yeah.
And like really getting into the body, you know, and understanding the relationship between the spirit and the body. And I get spiritual when I work out. Like, it just like, it just sort of happens. I'm just like, okay, I've released something, you know, be it calories or whatever, but it's just like, no, like, I'm different now. Like, my mental health, like, I'm different mentally, like, for whatever reason. So, and also just like being grateful as much as possible, really. Thank you, universe. Thank you, God.
Oh man, this. Okay, two things. One,
Yes.
so you're talking about going to the gym and you're releasing, and that made me think of how, like, yes, we have like our physical environment, like this office space, our bedroom that we want to cultivate, but like also our body is a space.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I feel like I have to work out like 5 times a week, or else I just get really uncomfortable and just like agitated, because it really feels like a release of maybe the energy within my body whenever I do work out, and like activating the muscles. And another thing is with our clothing. I didn't grow up in a family who intentionally dressed themselves. So like, I kind of just got hand-me-downs and just wore whatever people gave me. And it's just been an evolution of the past couple years of stepping into like, I deserve to buy clothes that I want to wear.
Yes.
And I deserve to look good and to look nice and to take time getting dressed in the morning. Like, this is valuable.
Woo.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the energetics of our space, the energetics of our body.
Yeah.
And another thing about, you were talking about meditation, and I will go through periods of time where like I meditate every day for like 30 minutes to an hour, and then I'll kind of fall off. And right now I've fallen off totally, and I'm even at the point of like, this isn't worth my time. So last night I sat down for 20 minutes, I set my timer, and I was like, I'm just gonna do it. Like, I intuitively know that this is always worth it. And so my intention was mainly just to be present, and I was asking my spirit team, like, remind me how valuable this time of meditation is. And it was literally like the last minute where my monkey mind was going the entire time. And the last minute I got to this place of abundance. But recently I've been asking a lot about financial abundance and shifting my beliefs about like what I deserve and how much I can make and like what I can do to make that money. And so this last minute of my meditation, I felt this energy of abundance for the relationships that I have in my life, and the people and the connections. And I cried. Of course, I cry like every day, because I'm either crying because I'm so grateful, or I'm crying because I'm just like, what am I doing? You know, it's like, it's both, but I cry a lot. And I feel so grateful for this opportunity to connect with you. Like, this is ultimately what I truly seek in life. Aww. And sometimes it's like money. I think I want money. Like, I want money and I want freedom, but it's like this connection and living in our true empowerment and getting to support you too.
Oh, thank you. I loved what you said about abundance in relationships. And I feel like true abundance, it's not just money in the bank. It's not just gold rings, you know, it's not just the yacht. It's abundance in relationship, for sure. It's being able to walk in a room and have a really warm, heartfelt hug, you know?
Yeah.
It's about when you're like sad and you're questioning everything and you're like, do I take this leap of faith? Like, am I crazy? You know, to just have that one person who's like, who reminds you exactly who you are, you know? And that's something that doesn't just come like every day. Like that's a relationship you had to cultivate and spend time with. You know, that's somebody you had to spend time with. That's somebody who had to take the time to care enough to get to know you and to want to do that. And that's abundance right there, because you can't pay someone to do that.
No.
I mean, you probably could pay someone, but it doesn't mean that, but it won't be real. You know, it won't be that genuine connection, at least. But it's like, you don't have to pay for it. Like you like, that comes for free, because when we are in alignment and when we honor ourselves and we honor the people around us, it's really like, there's abundance. There is just abundance. And so a lot of the times, that financial abundance as well is coming from these relationships that we pour ourselves into, and we become the top 5 people that we hang out with. And so it's good to be discerning, but also welcoming and having an open mind to, you know, your next connection, because you never know. You never know. Somebody could be like, you know what, I've been looking for a spiritual podcast to, you know, put in Forbes or whatever, and to like have all this seed money so that they can do their thing. You know, it's like, you never know. Yeah. Like, and I have a friend. She asked me to help her, to help her to get what she wants, and because she's like, I'm kind of like, you know, when you look at a project for too long, you're kind of like, just like your eyes start to cross and you're just in the weeds at that point. She's like, can you just help me to like zoom out, basically? And I did this exercise with her, and one of the questions I asked her was, I asked her some really good questions, but I asked her, if you could meet one person that you need, like in your career, like how would you describe them? And yeah, I mean, she came up with a really good answer, but I challenge you to do the same, and myself as well. Like, what is that one person? You know, I mean, because it's going to be many people that you'll meet that'll give you what you need. But if there was one person, you know, who like could give you everything you want in your career, like what would they'd probably be an older lady who's, you know, has a hedge fund and whatever, who's looking for this, or, you know, and like get specific. And start to attract that energy or whatever, you know, and it doesn't have to be superficial. It can be someone who's like super warm, who has a lot of connections of, you know, spiritual practitioners who are doing their thing, whatever, who are willing to pay me to interview them. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's like, if you're able to put those things into words and into feelings and know what it feels like and imagine what it feels like to meet someone like that, when you're in that energy and you're in that alignment, that's what'll come to you for sure, because that's what you are. You attract what you are. So
thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah. I'm excited to do the exercise too.
Yeah. And thank you for planting that seed of possibility in my mind of like, I meet someone from Forbes who's looking for a spiritual podcast to put in there. Because I literally had never had that thought before. I didn't even think like, why would anyone want to put Perspective Switch in their magazine? I don't know. I'm so grateful that you just planted that in me.
Yeah, I don't know either, you know, but it's like when we're able to channel, you know, and it's like, it's just what came up for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I do my best. I find myself doing that, that channeling thing. Yeah. I've really surrendered to, you know, I've asked the universe to help me to be a perfect vessel for the frequency, and that's one of like the value adds for my clients. Like, they don't even know until they didn't know what they were signing up for until they got it, and they're like, wow, she actually knows how to translate like what I'm feeling and what I need into physical reality. And that's something like AI can't do. You know,
No.
it's something that you can't. And so it's a beautiful thing, really.
How can people find you?
Okay, yeah, I'm on Instagram at steffi.holistica. I have a website. It is holistic-spaces.org. I have a blog there if anybody wants to get into that more. There's a lot of tidbits in the blog, just saying. But then there's a scheduler there on my website in case anybody wants to go ahead and schedule just like a one-on-one call. We can talk about a new project or more speaking opportunities or just whatever they're going through, and we can, you know, move forward from there. And I'm also on YouTube, which is kind of random. Steffi Holistica on YouTube. And I always take emails as well. holisticspacesdc@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
This
welcome.
is amazing. Like, I'm just so happy that you really challenged me today.
Did I?
Yes, you really challenged me with these questions. Because I know for a fact and like deep down that I designed from a spiritual place.
Yeah.
And, you know, all these feelings and emotions, like I wouldn't be able to have even a leg to stand on if I wasn't a spiritual person. And so thank you for linking the two together and for helping people to realize that their spiritual upbringing and their, like how close they are to that higher purpose, that higher self is definitely linked to their environment.
Yeah.
100%, for sure. And the spaces that they dwell in. And and I'm excited to talk more about this sort of thing too.
Yeah.